Okay. All right. So it's a couple of minutes past. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this meeting. I'm me and Gaurish and other members from the Kickdrum team. We are excited to invite you all to this Cloud and AWS Essentials for Beginners training. It's a 2-day training course. There'll be 2 hours of training today and 2 hours tomorrow. So we ask that you try and attend both these sessions to get the best out of the training. I am Ganesh Ramamurthy. I am the head of Kickdrum India. With the Kickdrum India team, uh, we work out of a Koramangala office. Right now, we are all working from home. Our office is in Koramangala. We started the Kickdrum India office about 3 years ago. This is India operations for Kickdrum, which is based in US. Kickdrum US has been around since 2012. I want to also introduce Gaurish, who is our technical lead at Kickdrum. Gaurish has got tremendous experience in AWS. He is also an AWS certified solutions architect. And he can give you a lot of examples of real life applications of AWS and how we have applied it at Kickdrum. So thank you, Gaurish, for taking this training. Again, once again, I want to thank all of you for attending this training. We have in our midst a mix of people from industry as well as college. It's about 60% of you are from the industry and about 40% are from college. And out of the industry also, we have some experienced people as well as junior engineers on the call. So it's great to see such a mix. We most of you, AWS is new. Maybe cloud is new for many of you as well, and that's why we have also decided to include a quick overview on the cloud itself, so that you can understand what cloud is and then how AWS fits in to that context. So again, we will ask stop in between the sessions to take questions. So for now, I would ask all of you to go ahead and mute your phones and also turn the camera off. Make sure that you have those two off. It will help us to move faster in the session. We don't have a way to turn everyone's mute off, phones off. So we request that each of you go ahead and do that at this time. Just check if you haven't, if you think you have done it, just check once more to make sure that you are on mute. So before we get going here, I hope everyone is safe. Everyone's working from home. So this is why we are doing this online. We would like to do more of these type of training courses in the future. So please go ahead and follow us on LinkedIn at Kickdrum, and that way you will get to know about the future courses as well. We will be, like I said, there will be two sessions today and tomorrow. One session today and one session tomorrow. And at the end of tomorrow's session, we will send out a question survey, a brief survey, which will take about 5 minutes for you to do. So we request that you take the time and give us your feedback so that we can improve on things going forward. With that, I will turn this over to Gaurish to take it forward. So Gaurish, maybe you can go to the next.
Sure, Ganesh. Thanks for the quick introduction, Ganesh. Okay. So good morning, everyone. So we decided like we will do as that is a mix of people with less years of experience or 0 years of experience, and also people with 3 to 5 years of experience, as well as people from college. So we decided we will give a quick overview on what is cloud before we jumped into AWS. So if we directly jump into AWS, like it would be difficult for people to understand what is cloud. So that's why we thought we'll uh, start with what is cloud, and then we'll move on to AWS. So in this training, like at the end of the training, like what you would take away is like you would know what is cloud, what are the different cloud platforms in the world out, and you would have get a quick introduction on what is AWS and how to use the AWS services. As part of this training, we would give you a hands-on lab on 4 of the services, which is like EC2, RDS. RDS is relational database service, whereas EC2 is compute, like where you can create instances or computers running in your cloud. S3 is for storage, and Lambda is for serverless. I'll talk about it in future sessions, but at the end of the session, like you would be able to have hands-on on these 4 services. Okay. Moving on. So first, let me explain like what is cloud. So before I move on to cloud, like why there is cloud came into the picture. Like before cloud, you would be using local. So let's say you would be using local or on-prem computing, and then that evolved to bring cloud in future. So what is local? What is local storage or on-prem computing? So let's say you have your own computer and you have installed your database, or you are having a file storage in your local machine. The access within the database or access to the file storage happens within your computer, which is why it's called as local storage. Let's say I have my own computer and I have my database installed in my machine, or I have some video files, music, or images in my computer hard disk. So now, let's say if I want to retrieve, I can easily retrieve because it is in my computer. Let's say if you want to access my file, it is not possible because we both are not on the same network, and it's only local. It's only called as local, and it can be accessed only over local. That's why it's called as local or on-prem computing. Now, okay. So moving on to what is cloud. So cloud is like accessing the same whatever I mentioned in the previous one over the cloud, over the network. So let's say I have like 3 different computers, and all 3 have to access the same data from a different computer. That's what it is called as cloud. So now let's say there is person A and there is person B who are at 2 different locations, are using 2 different computers. Now, if they want to access the same kind of data or same data from a different place, it is what called as accessing the data over the cloud. So if you see this, the picture on the right side, so let's say you have like 3 different devices, and there is one other computer or hard disk where you would have database installed or you would have different files. And if you want to access all of them through different devices, that's what it is called as cloud. And for to access these data over cloud, you need a wireless router or you need an internet access. So for example, in your house, if you have a router and you have a computer, your computer is connected to the router, which is going to get the data from a cloud or from a different machine. That's what called as accessing the data over the cloud. Okay. So what is the difference between on-prem and cloud? So first, let's talk about on-prem. So if you're accessing a file from the same machine, it's called as on-prem or local. Let's say you have installed any server in your local machine, and if you want to access the index.html, just take a very simple example where you would have created an index.html and running in your local server. You would access it using the URL http://localhost:8080/index.html. So that is accessing your index.html from your computer. If I want to access that file, it is not possible because we are not in the same network. And I can't access your file, and hence it is local. Also, if you have any database installed and if you want to access the data from your own computer, it is possible. that is local accessing. On the other side, if you look at cloud, accessing files from a different machines located elsewhere is called as cloud. So I'll be sitting in India, and if I want to access a file which is deployed in a computer in US, it is possible over the cloud. So that's what accessing the data over the cloud. You would have seen a lot of memes or pictures saying like what is cloud, and that says someone else computer, right? So which is nothing but you have another computer at some different location and you are accessing that data from where you are sitting. That's what cloud is. A few examples could be downloading a video from Google, or if you're watching a YouTube video online. So let's say you are watching a YouTube video online, that is cloud because the video is hosted somewhere else and you're accessing the video from your location. It's not only just with images or data or videos or pictures. Accessing database over cloud is also possible. You would have installed a data. You can install a database in a different machine at a different location, and you can still connect to the database and create tables or retrieve the table data from where your computer is. That is also accessing the data over the cloud. Okay, I'll take a pause here. If you have any questions, you can ask me or you can put it in the chat so that I'll be able to answer. I'll take it as no. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. So what are the different cloud computing platforms available in the market? So there are a lot of cloud computing platforms available in the market, like Amazon Web Services. Microsoft provides Azure as one of the cloud computing platform. Google has started GCP as a cloud computing platform. Apart from these three leaders, there are few more cloud computing platforms like IBM, Oracle, Alibaba Cloud. So if you look at the picture on the left side, that shows like who are the leaders against like who are the new players. So if you see, Amazon Web Services plays a major role in the cloud computing platform, that they hold the 39 percentage compared to other platforms available in the market. So Microsoft and Google are just next to Amazon, where Amazon takes a bigger chunk of public cloud infrastructure. So as of June 2019, this is the data I got, which shows how much percentage Amazon holds versus others. And that is the reason we thought we will start with Amazon as it being a leader in the cloud infrastructure. We would start explaining what is AWS, and we will start explaining how to use AWS services. Okay. So what is AWS? So AWS is nothing but Amazon Web Services. It's a subsidy of Amazon.com, and it provides cloud infrastructure as a pay-as-you-go service. So what is pay-as-you-go services? You would be charged on how much you're consuming and for how long you're consuming. So let's say you want to set up a server and you need it for only 1 day or 2 days. And if it has to be accessed by person outside the world as well. If you want to do it, you have to buy a machine, you have to set it up in your own place, and you have to install your servers, run your application so that people from outside the world can access it. But let's say you want to do it for only 1 day, and like which leads you to buy a computer for which needs to be accessed for just 1 day. It's more cost for you. Instead, if you go with AWS, you can install a machine in AWS cloud. You can run your application and you pay for how much you're using and how long you're using. So it would be like the cost is only for 1 day, versus if you want to buy and set it up your own machine, the cost is more if you want to set it up yourself versus you go with AWS. So when I say how much and how long, so how much is like what is the hot disk or what is the RAM you want to put it on your cloud for the machine. Let's say even if you buy computers, you would be using 32 GB RAM 16 GB RAM and 100 GB hard disk, 500 GB hard disk, right? So that's what like how much it means to versus how long. If you want to run it only for 24 hours, then you would be charged only for that particular 24 hours. You wouldn't be not charged for an entire month or entire year if you're running it for only one day. Even there are use cases where you want to run your application only 1 hour a day. So let's say I want to run my application today 1 hour, tomorrow 1 hour, and the day after 1 hour. Why would I need to create a machine or set it up at my place, which needs to be running every 24/7? So instead, AWS gives you an option where you just run your application 1 hour today and 1 hour tomorrow and the day after 1 hour, and you would be charged only for 3 hours of consumption, not for the entire 3 days. It's just only for 3 hours of the consumption. Okay. Okay. So when I say what is AWS, when we say like we want to set it up a server at AWS, how does it works? So AWS is nothing but it has its own place across the globe where they have its own data center where they would set it up a server when you request. So let's say I want a Linux machine of 16 GB RAM. I can request AWS, and AWS can set it up for you in any of these locations. So if you see the blue dots, these are the locations where AWS has its all data centers. So they would be able to set it up in any of the regions where you are seeking. So let's say I am in India and all of my customers are Indian customers. And so the network would be within India. So you need not to set it up your server in US. Instead, you can set it up your server in India. So now you can request AWS, create a server for me in India region so that I'll set it up all applications on top of that. And since all my customers are in India, they would be able to they can access it within India. So the latency would be very less. I can still go ahead and set it up in US, but the network has to come from India. Since most of my customers would be in India, then they would be sending all the requests through it to US and getting their response back from US, which is of adding a latency. So you can still go ahead and just deploy it in Indian region. So these are the different regions where AWS has its own space so that anybody can request in different regions wherever they want to. Let's say uh, our customers are mostly in US, then you can go ahead and create your server in US region so people can access it with very less latency within US region. So as of now, AWS has all these regions, and the orange dots you see are the coming soon region. So there are three more regions which are yet to be uh, created by AWS in those regions. I'll stop here to answer any of your questions.
It's like we don't have any questions.
Yeah.
Move on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'll talk about like briefly what are the several services which are available in AWS. So I'll just briefly talk about them before we jump onto more detail. EC2, Beanstalk, Lambda, and load balancer compute services, and there are a lot more. These are the most widely used services, which I am putting it here. So EC2, Beanstalk, Lambda, load balancer, like running your computers. Let's say, for example, just running your computers in cloud. Storage, content delivery, or S3 and CloudFront. So S3 is nothing but just store your file storage in somewhere in cloud. So S3 is a service provided by the AWS, which anybody can use to store any of the data in cloud. On the right side, if you see RDS, DynamoDB, Elasticsearch, these are like database related services. VPC and Route 53 are networking kind of services, where VPC is like you want to set it up your own cloud within the data center of AWS, which is for a particular customer that you would be using VPC. Route 53 is the DNS management service by AWS, where you could set it up your own domain name for all your services. On the right side, if you see, the management tools are CloudWatch and CloudFormation. CloudWatch is nothing but accessing the logs of the entire services. CloudFormation is to set it up your infrastructure using scripts. So these are like on high level. You would get to know more when we go way deep into it. KMS, IAM or security related services, and trusted services and CloudTrail are security related services. AWS also have application services like SES, SQS, and SNS. SES is nothing but email service. You can still use AWS SES to send emails or receive emails. SQS is nothing but queuing service, where it's like first in, first out queue or first in, last out queue. You can still use AWS SQS. SNS is nothing but a notification service, where it's like topic related, where AWS would be able to notify all the different consumers related to that SNS topic. They also support code build and code pipeline, where you can use these services to deploy your application automatically into the server. So we in this session we would be talking about EC2, RDS, Lambda, and S3. So these are the four services which are widely used or most commonly used across the globe in any of the organization or within it's in the company. So we thought these four, let's start with these four services because these are the widely used services. Okay. So as part of day one session, we would pick EC2 and RDS, which is like the most used services. Wherein in EC2 we would okay. On what you will take at the end of the session where on EC2 you would be able to launch a Linux instance, which is nothing but installing a machine on the cloud in AWS. And once you have that machine created, how would you log into it? So and then how, like, we would take a sample example where how you would be able to set it up a small HTTP server and render a basic HTML page. So once you deploy that HTML page, anybody can access it from the world. And then we would do an automated execution of the same when launching the instance. And I'll also talk about elastic IP address. So as and then I'll do all the steps. I'll come back here. I'll show you like what I did so that you can relate to what we did in the previous step. Also, at the end of the session today, I'll send out a PDF file with all the steps so that you can go ahead and try creating the Linux instance or Windows instance using AWS by referring to the document with the knowledge you gain in the session. Okay, so I'll go ahead and log into my AWS console. Okay, so I have created an account and I have logged into my AWS console. I hope most of you would have created your AWS account. If you would have created, please try to use free tier. As if you are like experienced people, like you would know if you are like college students or if you are new to AWS, and if you try to run any services which are paid, you would be charged. So please try to use only free tier. I'll demo like how to choose the free tier just before word of a caution. Please try to use free tiers so that like you would not be charged, because AWS gives you 1 year of free usage only on the free tier services. So if you consume any of the services beyond free tier, you will be charged. So please try to use the free tier services. So first let's do hands-on on EC2. So let me go ahead and select EC2 under the services. So which is nothing but virtual servers in the cloud. So let's say I want to run a server in the cloud, you would use EC2. So let me select EC2. So you can see running instances 0. I don't have any instances running as of now. So since we want to launch an instance, let's go into the running instance. Okay. So I'll click on launch instance. Since I don't have any instances, you are not seeing any instances. Let's go ahead and launch an instance. Okay. So on the left side, you see free tier only. This is, if you select this, it will list only the services on EC2 which are free tier. For example, if I unselect, you would see a lot of services which are like non-free tier. For example, like few of the Windows like 2016 SQL Server are not free tier. You can see the free tier tag for which the free tier is allowed. So let's go on and select free tier. And then I'll choose a Linux machine for the demo purpose. So I'm choosing Amazon Linux 2. So we are creating a virtual server using the Linux operating system in the cloud. So that's what Amazon Linux 2 AMI is. I'm going to select this AMI. And then here, these are the types of uh, machines available in Linux service. So for each type, these are named by AWS, which indicates what is the CPU cores and what is the RAM of that instance and what is the storage type. So let's say if your requirement is to create a bigger instance which requires 4 GB RAM or 8 GB RAM, then you would go ahead and choose T2.xlarge if you want a 4 GB, 16 GB RAM with 4 CPUs, or 32 GB RAM, and if you need 8 CPUs, you can choose T2.2xlarge. So AWS provides all these levels of storage, levels of RAM, and levels of CPUs. So it depends on whatever your requirement. You can go ahead and create. So for demo purpose, I'll choose T2.micro, which is like free tier eligible. And if you're choosing anything apart from T2.micro, you would be charged even if you are in a free trial account. So please try to use the free tier eligible ones. I'll choose T2.micro, which is nothing but one CPU core and 1 GB of memory. For the demo purpose, it's more than sufficient. So let me go on and click next, configure instance details. Okay, so I'll briefly talk about all these options under instance details. The first one is the number of instances. So if you want to launch more instances at the same time, you can choose how many instances you want. So let's say if you give 2 instances, it will create 2 instances at the same time with the same configuration. Spot instances is nothing but if you want to purchase on spot. So it would be depends on you can quote a price and it would use that price to install give you the virtual server, and once it goes beyond the spot cost you are uh, putting, the instances would be automatically terminated. So this is in case if you want server, if you are okay for your servers to terminate at later point of time, you can use spot instances. For now, I'm going with on demand. So if you don't select this, it becomes an on demand instance. And then the network part. So network part is if you want to group your resources within a specific, if you want to group your services, then you will be creating a VPC, which is nothing but virtual private cloud. And then all your services, like if I want to create one more instance today and one more instance tomorrow, and if they both belong to the same customer, let's say I'm running 2 different applications in AWS. So let's say I'm doing for one customer A and another one for customer B, then I would use one VPC for one customer and another VPC for another customer. So for now, I'll use the default VPC, and then subnet, I'll use the default subnet. So subnets are nothing but again, logical grouping of your services within the VPC. So I want to put 2 instances in one subnet and 2 instances in another subnet. It is possible so that you can group which one are private and which one are public. What is public subnet? Public subnets are nothing but subnets which public can access to. Anybody from world can access to any services running in that subnet is called public subnet. Private subnets are nothing but the resources which are deployed, which cannot be accessed by public, and it can be accessed only within the VPC. One use case would be you don't want your databases to be open worldwide. It should be only used by only your application, so that you can deploy your database in the private subnet. So so for now, I'll just leave it to default subnet. And then what is auto assign public IP address? Okay, so the difference between public IP address and private IP addresses is public IP address is nothing but anybody should be able to access that uh, machine using public IP address. If it gets only private IP address, you will not be able to access it because you people outside the world can only know what is public IP address. So the internal private IP address cannot be used by the machines outside the world to access the machine. So if you want public IP address, you have to choose enable. So I'll choose enable. So just ignore this placement group capacity reservation for now. These are like when you use VPC, you and placement group is nothing but you want to place your instances at a logical spacing within AWS. That's what placement group is. IAM role, if you want to give specific permissions for your instance, these are like once you know about IAM, it makes sense. So I'm just skipping it for now. Shutdown behavior, if you want to stop or terminate, if you want to shut down, you can choose stop. Even if you stop and the instance should get destroyed, you can choose terminate. I'm just leaving all these other options as default. And then you can have, just look at the user data at the last part. This is nothing but any script if you want to run to automatically execute for you when the instance is getting launched. Example could be if you want to install few softwares when the instance is getting launched, you can add that instances steps here so that it will automatically run those steps, create the instances for you. So for now, I'm just giving it blank, and then we will come back and add few more scripts to see the changes. Next is add storage. So storage is like how much storage you want to add to the virtual server you are creating. For example, if you want 50 GB or 100 GB of machine, you can give the size as 100 or 50. For now, I'm just leaving it as blank with 8 GB. The next tags. Tags are nothing but as the name specifies, tagging your resource. Uh, so if you want to know who created the servers, you can add a tag called creator and name it as Gaurish. So in your personal account, you would be only one of you using, so it doesn't make sense to add a creator. But in case consider you're working on an organization or a company and multiple users are accessing your account, then the tags helps you in identifying who created the servers or for which project they would have created the server. So you can add one more tag like project and say AWS training. So if you're working for a project, you can add which project you are adding. So this will help you in finding out the billing across different projects. So next is security group. Security group is nothing but what is the security that is associated to the server you are creating. For example, what are the ports that it has to be allowed from where? So if you want to do SSH into your Linux machine, you have to add 22 port because SSH works on 22 port. For now, I don't give any SSH. I mean, I'm not giving any security group. Let's try to see what error we get, and then let's go ahead and see how we can resolve it. For now, I'm just creating a name without any security group. And that's KD. Name AWS SG1. Just giving the same description. So it has no rules. So you can see I haven't added any rules. So review and launch. So you can see all the like what are the things we have selected. You can review it here. So you can see we would have selected 8 GB RAM. So what are the tags we created? I'll go ahead and click launch. So when you're launching, AWS asks you what is the key you want to use to access this machine, or if you want to log into the machine, what is the key you need. So let's say since these instances are created virtually, what is the authentication that is used to log into the virtual server you have created. So it uses private and public key option, where AWS will give you a key and you would use that key to remotely log into that machine. So I have already created a key, so I can use that key. Or if you want to create a new key pair, you can select a create a new key pair. I'll go ahead and create a new key pair. I'm just giving NV because I'm launching this in North Virginia region. AWS training NV. I'm clicking on download. Okay, I'm downloading the key pair. I have downloaded the key pair, and then I'll go ahead and click launch instances. Okay, so the instance is getting launched. We can go to EC2 and see the status. Okay, you can see the instance's status pending. If you look at the bottom, it will show all the details about the instances. So if you see the security group, it shows what is the security group, and the inbound rules, there is no inbound rules added. And the outbound rules is all ports are allowed for outbound. So from this instance, it can talk to any port outside the world. Inbound, so no port is enabled for inbound, so no port would be able to to the machine as an in way. You can see the instance state is running, and the status check, it is getting initialized. So if you want to connect to this instance, you can click this connect, and AWS will give you the steps on how to connect to the instance. So first, the key you would have downloaded, it has to be should not be publicly viewable. So you can run this command chmod 400 to make this key private, and then you can use this command to remotely log into the machine. So once it gets readily available, let's try to connect. I think it should be able to connect. Let's try to connect it. So I'm going to my terminal. So where I'm navigating to downloads, where I downloaded the key. So you can see I have this key here. So I'm just running the command to make the key private. Okay, the key is private now. And then let's use this command to SSH into the machine. You would see it times out because SSH works on the protocol or port 22, and we have not enabled the port 22 for the machine. So as part of the security group, we are not allowing any ports to be opened for port number 22, where SSH works on port number 22. So that's why you're still seeing like it is not able to communicate to the machine to log in, and it would time out eventually. Okay. So Jitesh, to answer your question, uh, if for a newbie, or like if you want to know whether it's a port issue or not, so if it times out, it would be either you're not able to reach the machine. So if you're not able to reach the machine, which means either the network could be lagged, which means like there is no network open from your machine as an outside to access the port 22, or the inbound port for the machine is uh, not allowed. So if you see the error, you could see connect to the host, operation timed out. So operation timed out indicates you're not able to access that machine. So it could be either your machine does not have port 22 enabled to outbound, or the machine on the cloud is not allowed with inbound port 22. So now let's go ahead and add the security group. So you can see what is the security group attached to this instance. So if you move to the right, you would see the training security group. So you can click this to open the security group, or you can directly search for go to the security groups on the left tab. And then since you know the name you created, the training AWS S31, let's go on and click that. And now you can edit the inbound rules and add the rule. So let's say I'll add the inbound rule. I'll say if you want to do SSH, you can search for SSH, and then the port automatically comes up 22, and then who you want to allow. So if I choose my IP, so my IP is nothing but 117.247. You can get this IP address by going to your browser and hit what is my IP. You would see the same IP address 117.247.97.108. If I say that port 22 is open only for this IP address, only I would be able to log into this machine. If you want it to be for a outside world, then I have to choose anywhere. So if I choose anywhere, anybody can log into this EC2 machine or the Linux machine if they have the key pair, the PEM key file we downloaded. So now let's say this key gets compromised. If somebody has uh, somehow downloaded the key, and then if you have this IP address enabled for outside the world, anybody can be able to log into that machine. So which is a security leak. So if for port number 22, since it is allowing remote login to the machine, always prefer to use your IP address so that nobody would be able to log into the machine even if they get hold of the key somehow. So let's say your router gets disconnected and reconnects, your IP address would change unless you have a static IP address. Static IP address is nothing but your IP provider gives you a static IP, which would not change even they restart the routers. But it is chargeable, so people in India mostly doesn't buy static IP addresses. So this IP address will keep on change for you if you are restarting your routers, or if your power goes off and comes back to your house, then this IP address would change. So it is okay. You can come here and change the IP addresses later, but rather than doing a security threat of allowing it for everyone. So for now, I'm going to give this IP address, which is my IP address, and then save the rule. Okay, so I opened the port 22 for this IP address. So now let's go on and try the command again. Okay, now it asks me like, do you want to uh, continue connecting? I'll give S. Okay, I'm connected to this machine. So you can see uh, the IP address I have connected is ec2-user at IP, some private IP address. If you see this is the private IP address, you would see in the EC2 instance. So this is the public IP address. So 34.226.153.127, and the private IP address you can see it here, 172.3.190.219. So this is within AWS. So AWS would be able to resolve this IP address internally. We would not be able to resolve this IP address. So let's now clear. And now we are remotely logged into this machine. So now let me go back and show you what we have done so far so that you can relate. So we would have launched an Linux instance, which we would have used the AWS console uh, and launched the instance. And then we also did how to remotely log into the Linux instance. So this involved setting up opening a port on 22 and using the SSH command. So now let's talk about how we can run a HTTP server. So if you want to run a HTTP server, you want to install a server at your Linux machine. So it can be Tomcat server, it can be like Apache server or anything. For demo purpose, I'll use a HTTPD server. So first, I want to update my OS. So for that, you can use the command yum update. I need to be root, so I can use sudo su. Okay, I'll do yum update. So it is asking me, do you want to continue? I give yes. I'm updating all the packages in the EC2 machine, which is what this command does, yum update. Okay, it is complete. Clear. So I'm just making a note of the command. I have this noted here. So the next I'll install a HTTP server. So the command to install is yum install httpd, and then if you want to automatically choose yes as answer, you can give -5. I think it is yum install -5 httpd. So if you see, it didn't ask me yes or no to continue, because since we gave the option -y, it automatically picked -y as yes and installed automatically. Now let's start the server. So the command to start is this time ctl start httpd dot service. So this will start the service. So the service is started now. Now I'm just running another command to enable it automatically. So even the machine gets restarted, this command would automatically start. So this is a command to start the service automatically. And then let's do is I'm navigating to a folder where that's where this server would create the folders to be accessed from your browser. So I go to cd www, and then I'm creating a HTML file. So I'm navigating to HTML folder, and you can see there is no file. So the location is /var/www/html. So let me go ahead and create an index.html. So I create a HTML tag, then I say title as AWS training title, and then I put body tag, closing the tag. I just created a sample HTML file here. So you can see this index file exists here. Okay, so this is the content of the file. So now let's assume this machine is local. So since I am into this machine and the HTTP server is running here, I can access this file using port localhost on port 8080. So HTTP / localhost / index.html. That's running on 80. Did we create index.html? Yes. Okay. Let me try to access this file using this IP address. So since this is running in the server, just ignore like what is happening in the local. Let's try to access it from outside world. So I'll go to this tab. slash slash. So what is the public IP address? This is the public IP address. I choose here. So it would not be able to open because port this runs on port 80. So if you do a default command with an IP address and it runs on port 80. So let me go on and add the security group with port 80 as well. So now you see we have enabled only for 22. Let me go on and add a port 80. So I choose anywhere so that like anywhere you would be able to open port 80. That's why I choose anywhere. Let me save this rule. So now port 80 is open for outside world. So let me now you can see the message is AWS training and hello everyone. So now this is nothing but I am accessing this from my computer. This is my browser. So now let's say I give this to you, you should be able to access this. I'm just pinging this in the chat. So if you try to use this URL, you would be able to access the message we would have given. This is because this is hosted in a server and we enabled the port 80 from outside world so that you would be able to access this from outside. So now let's try to run it the same command. I think because I'm in sudo. Nope. I think this is not getting resolved. I think local it will not be able to access it, but we are able to access it from outside world. So now let me go ahead and delete the inbound rule for 80. So which is I'm removing it from our 80. Now if I try to hit this URL, I should not be able to access it because I am not allowing port number 80 to access this machine. So I'll close this and open it in new tab. You can see it is still loading and it is not able to resolve this IP address or to reach to port number 80 to access the data. So let me go on and add the rule again. I choose anywhere so that anybody could be able to access this. I updated the rule. So let me hit this. And it came the hello everyone message with the title AWS training. So now this is setting up a HTTP server. So if you let me go back to iterate, so we would have set it up a HTTP server and rendered a basic HTML page. And then we access this HTML page remotely from a browser. Now I'll talk about how we can, so let's say I want to do this automatically. So you remember all the commands we ran so that we can add this as a user script. So anytime the machine gets created, we want to do this step automatically. So let me go ahead and launch one more instance. Launch an instance. Choose free tier only. And I'm choosing this one. Okay, so Jitesh, to answer your question, slash by default, it would go to index.html. If you want to use a different named file, you can create a.html. And if you want to access a.html, you need to give IP address slash the file name. So by default, browser would pick any file called index.html if you are not giving any file name. And if you give any file name, it would pick the file name which you are adding. I'll go and choose. I'm just choosing all the same options except the user data. I'm going to add the data, whatever the commands we have created already. So I'm just going to copy this. I'll explain this. Okay. So if you see, these are the commands we ran. So first we updated our OS using yum update y, and then we installed the HTTPD server, and then we started the service, and then we enable the service so that even on restart, the server is all automatically get started. And then I'm just adding some text hello world from what is the file name host name to this file. So echo does write the content to the file which is next to this greater than symbol. So it will write this content into this index.html. So I'm going to copy this and then put it into the user data. So I'm putting the same content into user data and I'm choosing it as a text. Then choose add storage. I'm going to select the default 8 GB and then tags, I'm going to leave it same. I'm going to choose the same security. Like now I can choose whatever the security group we have already created, or if you want to create a new security group. I'm going to choose the same security group which we created. So if you, so because we want it to be open for only me to SSH, so 22 with the same IP address with port 80, I'm opening it for all. I'm going to click review and launch and then launch. So let me choose the same key pair. I acknowledge I have access to this key and then click launch instance. Let's see the instance. You can see this is pending state. Let's try to access this. So if it had an IP, public IP address, and this is the public IP address. Let's try to hit this to see if that message we had have added in the user script is loading. So it is not because this instance is coming up. That's right. Okay, it is running. Let's see the status check. Meanwhile, let's remotely log into the machine and see if it would have created that index.html file automatically. So I'm in downloads and then running the command to remotely log in. I could log in. Okay, let's go to where tab. It has not created the www. Okay, it has created the www folder now. You can see it is not there in the previous command when I give ls, and it is created, which means it is executing the script now. So let's go to www and see, and then go to HTML folder. You can see the index.html file already exists. Let's see the content of the index.html. So you can see it says hello world from this IP address because whatever command we gave is echo hello world from the host name of the machine and write it into this file. So this is the content of the HTML file. So now let's go to hit this URL. You can see I'm accessing this from my browser, not from the cloud. I mean accessing it from my browser. So I can give this link to everyone and you should be able to access this. this URL. So this is okay. Now, if I go back, I can see automated execution of a script when launching the instance. So this is automating whatever commands you want to run to make your life easier. So I don't want to wait until this machine gets created, then I log into this machine and then I run this commands. Instead, what I can do is I just put everything into the user data and it gets automatically uh, done for you. So this is a use case where you want to update your OS automatically or you want to install any server automatically. You can put it into this user script. So next I'll talk about elastic IP address. So if you see, I have given these two IP addresses to you and you are accessing this file for me now. Let's try to shut down the server. So let me go on and shut down, stop. So what would happen if you stop is this instance is stopped for you. You will not be charged for any time this machine is stopped. So for better use cases, let's say if I want to my server is running only for 10 hours a day, I will run it only 10 hours and then I'll go and manually stop it and then start it the next day. But this IP address is already given to you so that you are accessing this using this IP address. What would happen if you stop and then start your machine is this IP addresses would be changed for you. Reason being, these are the public IP addresses which are available in the AWS pool. If by the time somebody asks a new machine, and since this IP address is free, they would have given AWS would give this IP addresses to a new resource, and then you would not be able to get the same IP address back, and all your customers for which you would have given this IP address would not be able to access it because it would be a different server altogether. To overcome this problem, what AWS came up with an option called Elastic IP address. Elastic IP address is nothing but AWS will also allocate a specific public IP addresses to you for this resource so that even when you stop and start your application, the same public IP addresses would be preserved for you so that you need not to go to each customer to tell that my IP address is changed now, so you have to use this new IP addresses. This is very bad approach. So to solve this problem, you can associate a public elastic IP addresses to a machine and use that. I'll show that once the server gets started. I mean, it gets completely stopped. Okay, so if you see it is completely stopped and you can see the public IP address is gone, the public DNS name is gone. So let me refresh. You can also see in the below section, the IP address is not the same. So the IP address, whatever we got previous is 3.88.9.74. Let me go ahead and start this now. So the machine is getting started now. And let's see what is the public IP address we are getting for this machine now. Okay, you can now see 54.235.227.180, which is completely different than what we got earlier. So let me go in and access this URL. I could get this, whatever data we have in the machine, but the IP address has been changed now. So already, let's assume the same use case. I have given this IP address, which is nothing but http://3.88.9.74. Now I cannot access this URL because the IP address is different than what we got earlier. So how to solve this problem? So if you go to action for select the instance and then go to networking and choose manage IP addresses. I can ask, like you can allocate an elastic IP addresses to this machine. So let's go to allocate an IP address section. So you can go directly, or you can also go to elastic IPs in the network security section. So I'll choose elastic IP address. So currently there is no elastic IP address associated in my AWS account. Let's go on and create an elastic IP address. So from where you need this elastic IP address? From Amazon pool of IPv4 address. Let's click allocate. Okay. So what now I got is this 54.89.169.66. This is an IP address allocated for my account by AWS. So what I need to do is I select this action and then associate this elastic IP address. So this is elastic IP address associated to my AWS account. It's up to me to choose whatever instance I want to point this. So now let's go on and use this to associate to any of the instances. So I'll choose resource type as instance. And since we have two instances running, to which one you want to allocate this. So let's go on and see the ID of the instances. Okay, so I want to do this for this one, the first instance, for which the IP address is 54.235. So I'll go type this. Okay, this is I'm selecting this instance. And what is the private IP address? Allow this. Okay, I'm leaving it default. Click on associate. Now, if you see the IP addresses of this has changed to 54.89.169.66. So this is nothing but the associated public IP address. Now let's go on and click this URL. I'm getting the same content. Now, what I want you to show is, I'll go on and stop this instance now. So I'll ping this URL so that already has the message. Let's wait until it gets stopped and then let's start it to see if we get the same IP address. If we get the same IP address, which is the problem we wanted to solve. So if you see, even the machine shows stopped, and you can see the public IP addresses is still with the machine, which means it is holding the same IP addresses and not released it. So now if I go in and start this machine, it would have the same IP address. So you see like it is not getting changed. Let's see, I just restart, refreshed, and the IP address is same, 54.89.169.66. Okay, it is started. Now let's see if the message is getting loaded. Yeah, we can get the same message, whatever the index.html we created. So reiterate. So we just created an elastic IP addresses and then associated the elastic IP address to the EC2 instance we launched, so that on restart or stopping and starting the server, we hold the same IP address, same public IP address, which can be shared with other people. So this is on EC2. I'll stop here and give you like 2 minutes. If you have like any questions, please let me know. on the chat so that I'll be able to answer. Okay. So in order to install any applications into your Linux machine, you would need a root permission. I mean, like you have to be a root to make any OS level changes to the Linux machine. For example, installing a HTTPD server or updating my OS. These requires a root permissions. And since var folder is accessed only to the root, I had a root permission to write into the file. You can still go ahead and give another user the permissions to write by the root, and then you would be able to write it. But any changes, like if you want to do an update or if you want to do any install, you need to be a root. And whatever you are putting into the user data when you're launching an instance, which is nothing but the entire script we added, all the scripts would be executed as a root by AWS EC2 service. So whatever requires a admin privileges, for example, if you're using Windows, you need an administrative privilege to install the server, install any new applications. It is similar to the same. If you want to update any OS level changes or modify any new services or install any server services, you need to be a root. So in Linux, the command to log in as a root is sudo su. So sudo is nothing but giving you a root level permissions. By default, with the key you use to log into the EC2 machine, would have a root permission. So that's why I give sudo space su. It automatically did not ask any password and it just logged in as a root user. Whereas in real world, in the machines you are using with, if you are having a Ubuntu machine handy, if you want to log in as a root, you would log in as a root itself. Or if you want other users to have root permissions, they will just run the command sudo space su, and then it would ask the root password. So once you give the root password, you would become a root. But in EC2 in AWS services, since you add the since you launched the instance and you have the pem key file and you become a root, so sudo space su without any permissions, without any password makes you as a root user. So to give you on high level, any changes you want to make to on OS level in your machine needs root level permissions, and any folders which are accessible only to the root. And if you want to make any changes to those folders, you need to be a root. Okay. Okay. I'll move on to the next one. So in the next, as we now seen like how we can do a launch an EC2 instance, let's go on and try if we can launch an RDS. So RDS is nothing but relational database. So let's say I want to create a database. What is the service I need to use in AWS? It is nothing but RDS, which is relational database service. So in this session, what I'll talk about is how we can launch an database instance, which is creating a database in cloud, which is in AWS, how I can remotely log into the database. If you are installing a database in your local machine, you would use tools like SQL Pro or MySQL Workbench to log into the instance. You would use that UI to create the tables or run queries against the table. Now, what I am going to do is I'll remotely access the database, which I will install it in AWS location, and then access this database to create table, insert data, retrieve the data from the table. So what I'll do is I'll navigate to RDS service. So in the service bar, you can select. Okay, I just missed one thing talking about the regions. So by default, it is North Virginia region. So whatever the EC2 instances we launched, they were installed in North Virginia region, which is nothing but the machine is located physically in North Virginia AWS region, which is in US. Now let's say if you want to create your database in Mumbai, let's say in India region. So in the region section, you can choose whatever region you want to, so that that resource gets deployed in that particular region you are selecting. So now let's go on and create this Mumbai region. If you see, like, there is no EC2 instances launched here because in Mumbai I have not launched any instances. So now let's try to create the RDS instance in Mumbai. So let me navigate to RDS. So if you see still on the top right, the region is Mumbai. Okay. So let me go to create database, and then I'm going to choose standard option. Okay. What are the different engines AWS provides? In relational database, AWS provides you Amazon Aurora, MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Oracle, or Microsoft SQL Server. Let's say if you want to create an Oracle database, you can still use AWS RDS service and choose Oracle as the database and create the Oracle database for you. For demo, I'm just going to choose MySQL. And then what is the version of the MySQL you want? 8016. And then I'm going to choose free tier. So like you can choose production level, dev or testing level, or free tier. Production is nothing but it creates the database highly available, where like it creates a replica of the database. For dev and testing, you may not need a replica, but it needs to be accessed. For now, for the demo, I'm choosing free tier. Okay, settings. What is the database name you want to give? Let's give AWS training DB. Okay. So what is the settings you want? What is the username? I'm just leave it as admin. Password. I choose auto generate password so that AWS will create a password for me and give it, and then we can use that password. Okay. So what is the database type now? So as particular to how we had seen in EC2, we choose what is the instance type. Like we choose 1 GB of RAM with edge, or zero point 0.5 CPU core with 1 GB of RAM. Similarly, I'll choose 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM, which is the free tier. If you unselect this free tier, and if you choose production, you would see all this enabled. Like you can choose 40 CPUs, 160 GB RAM, 4 CPU, 16 GB RAM. I'll choose free tier, and then for free tier, this is the only instance class which is allowed. So I choose 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM, and this is called as T2.micro. And then what is the storage you want to allocate for this database? I can give for how much I want, or you give a minimal, which is 20, and then you can say enable storage auto scaling. As and then your data gets increased in your database, AWS will automatically increase your storage for you. So if you enable this, it automatically increases for you. And if you disable, it would not scale it for you. And you can also choose what is the maximum it should hit. It should not like it should automatically scale to maximum limit. It has to be there has to be a limit on it. So you can choose that. So I'll start with 20 and I'll go till 1000 GB. And if it goes beyond 1000, it would not scale. Availability and durability. So just ignore this for now. Multi-AZ, just one liner on what multi-AZ is. The same database is deployed in different availability zones in AWS, so that if one of the availability zone is down, you can access the data from another region, another availability zone. So connectivity, I'm going to choose the default VPC. This is like similar permissions what we did in EC2. Okay, additional options. Subnet group, I'm going to default. Should it be publicly accessible or not? If I choose yes, my database would be associated with a public IP address so that I can remotely connect to it. If I select no, it will not get a public IP address. RTS will not assign a public IP address. Only Amazon EC2 instances and devices inside this VPC can connect to your database, which is, since it is private IP address, only resources within that group can identify that machine using the private IP addresses. So I'm going to choose yes, so I can remotely log in. And then next is security group. This is same as what we did it for EC2 instance. I'm going to create a new security group. So AWS Deva Training DB security group. Availability zones. So these are the different availability zones in one region. So when we say region, region is nothing but a region in the world. It is Mumbai. So in Mumbai, there are two different areas where AWS has its own spaces where you can install the servers. So that is called as availability zone. So for protection, you would want in both the availability zone because assume one of the availability goes down, you have to retrieve the data from another availability zone. Assume one of the availability zone gets fired or it's something crashed in one of the availability zone, then you need to get the data from another availability zone. But for demo purpose, I'm not worried about data redundancy. I'm going to choose no preference and choose whatever the availability zone AWS chooses. What is the port on which the application, the database should be running? I'm going to leave it default 3306. What is the kind of authentication? I choose password authentication. I'm going to choose additional configurations, initial database name. Okay, so if I don't give any database, it will not create. So if I choose create a database, let's create a database called AWS day one as the database name. Okay. And I'm going to leave all the default. Backup is, if you want to create the backup for your database automatically, you can select this. I'm going to unselect this. I'm going to leave everything same. Let's create the database. Okay, it is launching the database. You can see it is creating. On the top right, you see view credential details. This gets popped up only once, and when you're launching the instance and you selected automatically create password. So let's see the, okay, so I got the master password and this is the password. Let me make a note of it. And once you close this, you will not get access to the password again. So I'm going to leave it. So let's wait until this database gets created. It will take a bit of time. Okay, so Navin, to answer your question, does Amazon charge separately for creating an Elastic IP addresses? Amazon does not charge you for Elastic IP addresses if it is associated to any resource. If the Elastic IP address is released and if it is not used for any of your resource, then Amazon charges you separately for the Elastic IP address. KK, to answer your question, how to move existing instance from one region to another region. You cannot automatically move an instance from one region to another region. What you can do is create a backup of the image or create a image of your EC2 instance, and then you can use that to launch in another region. So it's nothing but creating a backup image of an existing instance and then use that to launch in another instance.
So, any other questions?
Okay. Is the billing cycle monthly? Yes. Yes, Karan. The billing happens every month, and the billing is based on how much you have utilized in the past 1 month. Let's say if you're running your resources only a day in every day 1 hour, then you will be charged for 30 hours of running time, and it is charged based on the hour running time. Okay, now you can see the database status is available. So now let's select this to see the details. Okay, so now it had an endpoint. This is nothing but the endpoint is a public uh, endpoint, and then it has a port opened on 3306, and it has a security group. So let's go on and see what is the security group, what is the rule it created. So if you see the inbound rules of the security group, you can see MySQL Aurora, TCP protocol, port range 3306, and the source is my IP address. So what it did is it automatically opened the port 3306 for the IP address on which the where I launched. So it opened only for me. So only I would be able to access this database on port 3306. Similar to how on EC2 we did, if we want to open this for everyone in the world, you have to edit this inbound rule and then change this custom to everywhere. So if you choose everywhere here, anywhere here, then it becomes 0000/0, and anybody would be able to access this database. So I'm going to leave it for me now. So let's try to access this database.
Hey, Gaurish, your screen
Yeah.
is frozen. You may have to reshare.
Sure, Ganesh. Okay, let me stop and present again.
So since your screen was frozen since last 3-4 minutes, you may have to repeat just last 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, sure, I'll do it. So, is it visible now?
Yeah, just loading, not yet.
Okay.
It's taking unusually long time.
Yeah.
It's not loaded yet. Looks like it's frozen again, Gaurish.
Okay, I'm just checking my connectivity. Could be some. I think it's some connectivity issue. There, let me rejoin.
Sure.
So Gaurish will be on in a minute or two.
Hey guys, sorry for the delay. I just got. You're able to hear me good now?
No, your voice is crackling a bit.
Okay. Is it still?
It's better now.
Okay, let me share my screen and let me know if it is visible.
Yeah, we are good.
Okay, so let me log into the AWS console. I'll previous. Let me navigate to ODS. Okay, so I think we stopped at like where the instances got launched and we are not able to see like what I explained after it get launched. So you could see the status of the instances available now. Let me select the instance and you can see there is an endpoint which is a public endpoint. This is the endpoint we would use to communicate to the uh, or connect to the database, and it is opened on the port 3306. And then you could see there is a security group associated to this database. So if you open this security group, the inbound rule of the security group is MySQL Aurora with protocol TCP and port range 3306. So similar to how we open port number 22 or port number 82 on in our AC2 instance, this is the port 3306 which is opened for the source, my IP address, which is it is open only for my IP address. So only I would be able to connect to this database. So now since we have this RDS endpoint, what I'll do is I'll try to connect to my this database using my SQL Pro tool. So I'm going to open the SQL Pro tool. So let me know if you are able to see my SQL Pro tool, just to confirm like if you are able to see my screen still.
Yes, we can see it, Gaurish.
Thanks. Okay, so I'll go on and create a new connection. So I'll go create AWS signing. Okay, so I'm going to give the host, which is nothing but the host name, which is the endpoint I copied. So this is the endpoint which we copied, and this becomes the host name. What is the username? The username is admin, and the password is whatever we copied, which is automatically created for us. I want to choose the password as, and then port. By default, I'm leaving 3306. Let me go ahead and click test connection. Okay, I think it would fail, because my IP addresses got changed. Yes, let me go to EC2, edit the inbound rule. Let me choose my IP again. Okay, you can see it got changed. So it changed to 157. So let me go and try to connect or test the connection again. Okay, connection succeeded. And let me save the changes and connect to the database. Okay, so now you can see I have connected to this database. It still says connecting. Let me reconnect. So let me go ahead and create a new database. One training. Okay, there's some problem with my SQL Pro. Okay, I think there is a problem with my SQL Pro. Let me see if I have another tool. Once. I don't have another tool to try this. So what I'll do is like I'll fix this problem and I can try to show this tomorrow. Uh, Maybe like I can answer any of your questions. So all right, maybe like just give me a second. I'll disconnect and connect it again to see if it fixes the problem.
Hey, Gaurish, I think we should stop here.
Ganesh, a quick question in the meanwhile. Will this
Hello.
recording be shared with us?
Yes, so we will
Yeah,
share the recording.
yeah, we can.
Sure, thanks.
Hey, Gaurish, I think we should, if you're okay, we can, but since we have about 15 minutes left, if you think there are some problems, we can stop here and then pick it up from
Yep.
here from tomorrow.
Yeah, I just try one last time, like maybe like a couple of minutes. If not, like I'll stop here and I'll do it tomorrow. I think it is the same problem. So yeah, I'll go ahead and demo connecting to the database tomorrow. But I'll take a, if you have any questions, like I'd be able to answer. Uh, and sorry for that, like I didn't expect like the SQL Pro would get crashed. So to reiterate before you have, if you have any questions, so we just tried to create a database in the cloud, and then we try to create with the database name. We opened a port on 3306 because the port on which the database is running has to be open for you to connect to the database. That's why we opened the port on 3306 on which the database is running, and we opened it for either my IP address or everywhere. That's up to us. For security purpose, we would prefer to open the database on our particular IP address so that like it is not compromised to any other people, so that only few people would be able to access the database. And then we have the endpoint, we have the port, and we have the database name. So we can use all these to connect to the database. So first we launched an MySQL instance, and then we remotely accessed, like, which we couldn't do because of my SQL Pro issue. And let's do these two steps tomorrow before we move on to the next session. So I'll stop here. Any questions? I'll take it and let me know. I'll answer them.
I think we are good, Gaurish. So let's
Yeah,
break right now and catch up tomorrow. Thank you.
yeah, sure, Ganesh. Thanks again, everyone, once again. That's, I'll share the PDF on how to connect to the, or how to create the